through it quickly. So,
Okay.
I love this. So in Essex, yes, an angry tortoise was rescued after lighting a house on fire, essentially. So an angry-looking tortoise was rescued from a house fire after setting the place ablaze. The 45-year-old reptile knocked a heat lamp onto some bedding, which caught alight. It filled the house near. This was in Uttlesford in Essex, with smoke on Christmas Day right around 4:50 p.m. Neighbors heard the fire and called emergency services, scrambling firefighters to the location. They put the blaze out and rescued the unnamed shell dweller, which Essex County Fire and Rescue Service said looked mighty angry.
When I saw that, I was thinking that turtles aren't the same as they used to be when I was a kid. Way back, even before that, back in the days of Huckleberry Finn, or when I was a kid, Opie, and that turtles were friendly, weren't they?
Right,
they were lovable. Yeah. And now they're like the rest of the world. There's a real edge to them now.
Now they're just asses.
There was a time I used to break for turtles.
Yep.
I don't anymore.
Now you swerve for them.
Have you ever seen a turtle run?
No, they're fast.
Turtles are extremely fast. I've seen them run a couple times, and I was like flabbergasted. I could not believe how fast a turtle is.
Yeah.
When they have to be, they can shuffle right along. Yeah.
Or maybe when they're just racing a hare.
And like parrots, they taste good too.
Yeah. Hey, when I found out turtles were evil, so I was like probably 10 years old, and my dad and I were fishing off a dock up near Bon Echo area, and so I caught a sunfish. And it was just a little tug, and then all of a sudden my whole fishing rod almost came right out of my hands. What happened was the snapping turtle ate the sunfish that was on my line and got hooked, and I was reeling in the snapping turtle. And basically my dad's like, oh, you must have like a huge fish. And as soon as I got it up to the dock, he realized it was a snapping turtle. He's like, just throw the rod in. Just throw the rod in. It's not worth it. And this angry-ass turtle was coming for us, so...
Yeah.
Oh, cheapers.
Very, very powerful jaws, turtles.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Tortoises, yeah.
Tortoises and my wife. That's it. I hope mine's. I had to equalize it now. Yeah. Now I'm dead when I get home.
You're dead. Oh, that's funny. So, Myles, we'll get back to Friends of the Blues 2. It is your most recent album, correct?
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, this was a widely popular follow-up to Myles Goodwyn and the Friends of the Blues 1, or just kind of Friends of the Blues.
Yeah, it came out in 2018, Friends of the Blues. Yeah, it came out in 2018. Did very well, got a Juno nomination, won East Coast Music Award that year, and it was in top 40 in America and the blues rock charts for over a year, so it did well.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
It is.
Does everything you touch just turn to gold, or is that...
No, it's platinum. It goes platinum.
Sorry, platinum.
Oh, not everything. No. But it did well, and so I did the new one, and the new one's being received very well. So it's nice being the new kid on the block and releasing something and have it do well. That's for sure.
That's amazing.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, to follow up with a little bit more of a cliche question, what song on the new album means the most to you, and why?
Well, if I had to pick one, I suppose, which is always hard to do. I know it's a cliche, but anyway, to pick your favorite, there's one in there called "I Love My Guitar," and I had a guitar stolen from me decades ago that was returned a year ago this past Christmas.
No way.
It was stolen. I got the guitar in Cape Breton right before April Wine when I was in a band down there in 1968. It's a 62 Gibson Melody Maker, and I used it with April Wine. And then, about somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 years ago or so, it disappeared. And I thought that it had been destroyed in a trucking accident in Montreal. That's what I had been told. And I had people that actually saw the gear, and it was smashed and not usable anymore and all that kind of stuff. And I was told my guitar was part of that wreckage, but it wasn't. Somebody at that time stole it, and it's been all over the place all those years. Kind of like Peter Frampton getting his guitar back, except I got mine back in perfect shape. Thank goodness. I did, and I didn't even know it was alive. And it was my favorite guitar. It's the first real guitar I ever had. It was beautiful. And it was Christmas Eve, a year this past Christmas Eve, I got a message on Facebook saying, I know where your melody maker is. And I said, no, you don't. It's gone to Guitar Heaven or something. He said, no, I'll prove it. And he sent me a picture, and he said, this is in Victoria, BC. Well, it turned out it was in Victoria, BC, and I was able to buy it back. And when the media heard about this, it was a real frenzy. I mean, it was big news. I had TV people in my house for 3 days in a row. I was on television talking about it. It was a big deal, and it was a feel good story. At Christmas Eve, something like this is when you don't expect it. This long lost friend appears at your doorstep, kind of thing, was really incredible. And writing this second album, there's a song in there where I use the melody maker, and it's called "I Love My Guitar," and folks really like the tune, and I do too.
Beautiful.
That's great. Now, I have two questions to that story. The first one was, did you ever think that maybe the whole truck accident, the guitar getting smashed, and they saw that was just the ploy to throw you off the trail on what really happened to the guitar?
You mean they faked an accident on DeCarry Boulevard in the middle of Montreal to fool me?
Well, they maybe the accident happened, but they just happened to say that your guitar was part of it.
No, I think it really. I think they broke. They tried to avoid hitting a turtle. I think or whatever. The truck went out of control.
And then the turtle went on to light the truck on fire. Damn it!
And there was that's right. And there was carnage everywhere.
Damn turtle took the guitar.
Some asshole, it saw the opportunity to grab this when no one was looking, as everybody was going through the wreckage, and
wow.
Off it went, and it was in the black market. And the last guy that had it for about 15 years in his living room as a conversation piece. But it did come back intact. There was no damage to it, and I was able to play it right out of the box when it arrived back home. So
the second question I had to that was, when he did contact you, was he wearing a ski mask and talking into a Smarties box?
yeah. Well, eventually we corresponded by some emails, and I didn't have to buy that guitar back, guys. If somebody steals your car and you happen to see it in the neighborhood, you just call the cops. You don't have to buy it back. But I didn't want any bad karma at this point. I just wanted it home safe and sound. So, I bought it back, and the guy was he was okay under the circumstances. So.
Okay. You know what's crazy about that, and I just had an epiphany, because you hear about like all these stories about legendary instruments being stolen or misplaced for a period of time, and then sometimes they reappear, sometimes they don't. We should start a business, and we'll call it, instead of Carfax, Guitar Facts, right? And we can find out everything about that instrument and where it's been and all that for a fee.
Be like detectives for hire.
Yeah,
just trying.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea.
Guitar Facts,
because they are all unique. They have serial numbers and other things that identify them. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Anyways, yeah.
All that can be altered easily enough, but still,
it's true. Yeah, just like a VIN plate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what was it like being inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame? And
nice.
And how does that happen? Like, does someone give you a phone call and say, "Hey, guess what?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do. Yeah.
Really? Oh.
Yes, they call you and say you're being presented with a Hall of Fame award or whatever. Yeah, they call you and they ask you if you're up for it, kind of thing. Yeah, it's a phone call. Of course it is. Yeah,
that's amazing.
It was from CARIS, the governing body if you will, for the Hall of Fame, for Junos, for the Juno committee and stuff. And they contact the people that are going to be inducted, or if they want you to present or anything like that. I mean, I've been there many times presenting and so forth, and been nominated countless times. Mm-hmm. And in the case of, and I was there last year as a nominee for my blues record, but in the case of that event in 2010, we were contacted with a phone call. There's contact information for the artist. Same thing being inducted into the Canadian Industry Hall of Fame. They contact usually with a phone call. They track you down and they let you know that you've.
Yeah, we asked that question because we really just were curious. Like, is it, do they mail something to you, and how quickly does it happen from the time they call you?
Eventually, all the paperwork follows. But yeah, if they can reach you by phone, they would rather talk to you. I mean, obviously, they want to make sure they're talking to the right person too. Mm-hmm. So that's the best way. It beats texting any day of the week or emails. See,
it's a little bit different, obviously, because we were just nominated for a Canadian Podcast Award, and it came via email. But sometimes I feel if it had come by a call, especially with our group of friends, we probably would have been like, all right, who is this?
Yeah,
really?
Who is this? Is this Bob? Is this Bob from accounting? No. That's
so
cool.
So it just goes to show different generations, also just different industries, right? To see that the fact that people still use a phone.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. You use phones if you want to be right on the money. Yep.
That's amazing.
I miss the days of carrier pigeon being a thing. That would have been sweet.
You'd just be waiting forever to find out.
Yeah.
I would have thought you said mail, but okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Carrier pigeon, man.
Yep.
So they say a lot of great leaders have mentors. So who was your mentor growing up or even now?
Musically, we're talking about?
Yeah, just anything, like somebody that you drew inspiration from that you said, or helped guide your way.
I don't know. There's a lot of influences for what we do when we grow up. If we end up doing what we want to do or what we've wanted to do for a long time, some people know at a very young age what they want to do, and they stay true to course, and they eventually become whatever that is that they want it to be. And for me, the music was just something that was, part of my family, my mother's side in particular, and watching them was a great inspiration. And I had a cousin who was in the Air Force that he visited us once down from Brantford, Ontario. We were living in Nova Scotia here where I am now. And he had a guitar and a beautiful amplifier, and I was mesmerized with the uniform and this musical gear, these two pieces. And then later on in life, when I finished high school, I went to join the Air Force. And before, this was when there was an Air Force before it all became the Armed Forces. Mm-hmm. And I went and studied mechanical drafting and engineering. And on my final year of that, I was going into the Air Force to design whatever they needed me to design for them in terms of planes or anything else military, only to find out at that first official inquiry, that 90% of all of that kind of work was done by civilians. Mm-hmm. Huh. And I didn't want to end up in a little office on Water Street in Halifax for the rest of my life drawing toasters or something. So I said, that's it. I'm out of here. I joined a band. That was 1968, the beginning of 1968. Found my melody maker I told you about and never looked back.
Wow.
Yeah. Nice.
I thought you were going to turn around and say they asked you to design a guitar, and you're like, oh, I'm in the wrong calling.
That'd be sick. Yeah.
Could you give us a great story of one of your tours in any era and that sticks out in your memory the most? Like anything that was, yeah.
Well, I mean, working with the Rolling Stones in Toronto in 1977 for a couple of nights in a small club called the El Macombo with the Rolling Stones, and it was we recorded those 2 nights as did the Stones for their project, and that was recorded by engineer great Eddie Kramer, best known for all the work with Hendrix that meant anything at all. Mm-hmm. But he's worked in so many bands. He's still alive and vibrant and happening. And he's on Led Zeppelin, Kiss. I mean, you name it. The list is crazy. And he lives in Toronto now, and lived in New York forever. I went down to mix what we did with the Rolling Stones at Jimi Hendrix's studio in Manhattan in '77. April on released an album called Live at the El Macombo. So it's kind of hard to top that. And then they took us down to Buffalo for 40,000 people down there. And, that whole experience was pretty special.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That would be amazing. We get a lot of people that state either an influence or people they'd love to collaborate would always be the Stones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's good, though.
And you've done.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
All right. So this is an interesting question, and I wanted to ask it. So I was actually speaking with a friend of mine from Belleville, Ontario, a week and a half ago. And we were talking about, I mentioned that, we were having you on the show, and he said that he just had mentioned, he said basically his mother back in the day banned AC/DC from the house, but she allowed April wine. And so without actually getting in depth, I wanted to ask, rather than ask him why or get anything more, I wanted to ask